Game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of SportsGrid's Bracket Central Selection Show. He is the coach, JY James Young, and I am Ben Stevens. 2 more hours to go up until 10 p.m. Eastern Time as we continue to break down the bracket and make sense of the madness. We have already gone through the South region where the number 1 overall seed in Auburn resides. We will continue to go portion by portion around the field of 68. We'll get to the East region where the top team in the Duke Blue Devils are also housed in just a moment. But JY, one of the beautiful things about this selection show, about what we see on this Sunday, is the expectation all year long, early in the postseason during conference tournament week, and of course, what actually happens now that a bracket is unveiled. The matchups are always critically important. So where were the national championship odds just a few hours ago before the bracket was unveiled, and where do they stand at this current moment? That is our topic of conversation here to begin. The Duke Blue Devils, JY, will enter the NCAA Tournament as the favorites to win a national championship. A plus 340 price, as you see on your screen, but the markets have not slowed down. A plus 330 number currently right there as well. There was some thought, JY, the Blue Devils could be the number 1 overall seed in the Big Dance. They are not. Number 2 overall, 1 seed. They are in the East region. When you look at the national title favorites in Duke, what's the best thing about John Shire's crew?
They can lock you up. I mean, they can lock. Listen, they got to get healthy. They got to get Brown back. Obviously, they got to get Cooper back. But they play such phenomenal defense, and I just don't think people understand how hard it is to get freshmen to play defense at a high level, and they're able to do that. And I think that what it is the ability of Cooper Flagg offensively to be that Swiss Army knife, right? The ability to kind of get you in so many different ways. So you want to run it up with them? Cool. You want to walk it up? Cool. Whatever way you want to do it. But any team that looks at to me that is top 4 in offensive or defensive efficiency, or if they're 5th in offensive effective field goal percentage or 3rd defensively, they can beat you on either side of the ball.
JY, I dove through the numbers of the last 20 years on Ken Pom pre-NCAA tournament net ratings. Basically, how good does Kenneth Pomeroy and the analytics think your basketball team is? Duke's net rating as of this moment, after an outright ACC regular season crown and a tournament title, is plus 38.15. In the last 20 years, that is the best pre-tournament team entering the big dance Ken Palm has ever seen. In fact, the 4 best prices to cut down the nets as a national champ are 4 1 seeds, all with a net rating of plus 35 or better. That is the most we have ever seen at a plus 35 or better entering the NCAA tourney. If that was too many numbers for you, to make it rather simple in plain logic, a lot of really good teams at the top of this bracket. We're talking about market movement. Of course, JY, despite being the number 1 overall seed, Auburn has seen its price over the last 10 days move back. Entering the final week of the regular season, the Tigers were the short favorites at a plus 330 number. Where you see it there on the graphic is not where it is live. We're going to go through this as we make sense of the madness. The numbers will continue to change and update. The Tigers will enter the big dance more than likely, JY, with the 3rd best price to win a national championship at 5-1. Seemed to be hearsay a couple of weeks ago, but after dropping 3 of their final 4 before we get to the big dance, kind of checks out at this time.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the way they played, they should be the 3rd. You could argue they could be the 4th. Yep. You could argue they could be the 5th. Right now, they're just not playing good basketball, and Bruce Pearl and his staff has a lot that they have to kind of fix. And the tough thing is you don't have a lot of time to really do so.
Yeah.
So to me, look at the fact that where they are priced, it's partially because how they're playing, but also I keep going back to that second round matchup is extremely tricky when they have to go against either Pat Kelsey of Louisville Cardinals or obviously Greg McDermott in a Creighton Blue Jays.
And based on bracketing principles, because our top 2 number 2 seeds were Alabama and Tennessee, teams from the same conference, not often slotted together, even in these changing days of expansion and realignment. Michigan State is the 2 seed in the South region. And when it comes to winning basketball at this time of year, of course, the head coach from East Lansing in Tom Izzo knows a thing or two about that. But JY, actually the most beneficial and positive market movement we have seen since the bracket was released, that's on the number 4 overall 1 seed, the top team in the West region. That would be the Florida Gators, a conference tournament title today in Nashville. This Florida team is absolutely loaded. And when you look at the odds from where they were earlier in the day, a plus 440 price, we have seen the Gators price drop now by close to half a dollar. It was plus 390 earlier. It's currently plus 410 on the FanDuel Sportsbook.
Chomp, because the Gators are coming.
Yeah.
And they are big, they're tough, and that guy right there, Walter Clayton Jr., has become such a dynamic two-way player to affect where a team where they could get you, and the crazy thing is not only can they get you in transition or defensively, they can get you on the boards. They're big. They're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, and they got a plethora of bigs. I'm talking 3-4 bigs that can all get on the glass led by Condon. So for me, this team is playing probably, you would say, the way they play this weekend, the most impressive showing during championship week has been the Florida Gators.
And JY, when we talk about things from an against the spread perspective as well, this Florida team, not just one of the best in terms of outright victories in college basketball with the SEC tournament crown this weekend in Nashville, also one of the best cover teams in the country. 3rd best cover team in the most difficult conference in college basketball, 26-8 against the spread, which should tell you what? Not only is Florida winning games, they are blowing out their competition. The Gators are playing great ball at this moment. Walter Clayton Jr., the playmaking Ozzie, the big man, in Alex Condon as well. Houston, 4th best price to win a national championship at a plus 750 number. What Kelvin Sampson has done with this Cougs basketball program in H-Town, JY, can never be overlooked. But let's move a little bit deeper down those national championship odds right now. Of course, there will be a team that has gained national notoriety, and for all the right reasons. The first Big East outright regular season crown in Queens in 4 decades. That's St. John's. The first Big East tournament title in the world's most famous arena just last night, since 2000. Also St. John's. When you look at the Red Storm and their NCAA tournament outlook, how deep of a run can Rick Pitino lead the Johnnies to?
Well, I said before the tournament that if they stayed away from Duke and Auburn when Auburn was playing well, that they could make a run to the Final Four. The reason why they could do so, coaching. You need to have big-time coaching. Guard play. You look at, Travion Smith. You look at Simeon Wilcher. You look at Kadari Richard. You look at R.J. Lewis, Big East Player of the Year. You look at Scott as that Swiss Army knife forward, small forward. And then you look at Zubi Ejiofor, the most improved player in the Big East.
Yeah.
They pose problems because they, to me, if there's the warden that I call Calvin Sampson, the second warden is Rick Pitino because they have the best defense in the country, and I would love to see them in Florida in the Elite Eight. Oh, would that be a contrast of styles?
The 2 seed in the West region, that is St. John's. The top team in the West region, that is Florida. For Rick Pitino first, the Omaha Mavericks into the big dance for the first time ever. Hide the kids, hide the trash cans when it comes to the Mavs in the big dance. We will continue to break down every single portion of this bracket, including our next region up. That would be out east. The Duke Blue Devils, the top team in the East region. That's next.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on SportsGrid's Bracket Central Selection Show. We continue to dive deep all throughout the field of 68 and that NCAA Tournament bracket now unveiled. We started with the South region, where the number 1 overall seed in Auburn resides. How about the number 2 team on that one line? But the 1 seed in the East region, that would be the Duke Blue Devils. JY, they are the highest rated team entering this NCAA tournament. They are the national championship favorites at this current moment as well. I asked you what the best thing about the Blue Devils is. You said the propensity to lock you up on the defensive end of the floor. And also the fact they probably have the best player in college basketball in Cooper Flagg. Of course, that will be a big story as we start the big dance. Cooper Flagg injured during the ACC tournament on Thursday afternoon for Duke. Did not play Friday against North Carolina, nor in the tournament title game last night against Louisville. But John Shire in the program saying that Cooper Flagg will be ready to go for the round of 64.
Duck. Because if they are healthy and they get Cooper back and he's ready to go, and obviously we'll see what with Brown getting him back from injury with the shoulder, they play a style. And here's the thing you have to realize: a team with 3 starting freshmen, McDonald's All-Americans all over the place. They're one of the slowest teams in the country, which you know and I know, Ben. It slows down when you get to the tournament. It's not the high. That's why you get nervous sometimes with a team like Alabama, like even though they got to the championship game.
Yeah.
You don't get high-flying up and down teams. You got to be able to defend well in the half court. And pretty much all year until the very end of the year, the number one defensive team according to efficiency was the Duke Blue Devils. So their ability to defend is something that's very impressive. You look at some of the scores that they've had in the ACC, and it's hard to find anybody that got. I know 77 points when he lost to Clemson, but besides that, they haven't given up 77 points to anyone since Notre Dame, January 11th. You want to go further back than that? You got to go back to the game against Auburn when they give 70 December 4th.
Yeah.
They don't give up points. So they don't give up points, and then they could score in many different ways. This is why this team is playing the way they are right now.
It's why they have a Ken Palm rating of plus 38.15. That would be, in the last 20 seasons of men's college basketball, the highest rated pre-NCAA tourney team we have ever seen entering the big dance. Duke will await in their 116 matchup the winner of our second night of play-in games in Dayton, Ohio. The champions out of the Patriot League, American University, and the champions out of the MAC. The Mount back in the big dance, Mount St. Mary's with their first year, JY, under Donnie Lynn. And when you look at the East region, in my estimation, we were sitting in the conference room together here at the illustrious SportsGrid Network, looking at the bracket be unveiled. As we saw the South region, Louisville an 8 seed? That could be difficult for Auburn. As we looked at the East region, the top portion of that bracket, Duke's got a pretty favorable draw at the top of the East region to at least be into that second weekend, a Sweet 16 berth, an Elite 8 appearance. In fact, Duke is a minus 120 favorite to win the East region. That would, of course, be a Final Four bid to San Antonio. Because, JY, as you look at the top of the East region, who do you think is the toughest test for the Blue Devils, if you can even spot one?
There isn't one. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Baylor, humongous disappointment. Mississippi State overachieved this year. Oregon, don't know if they win their first round game. Arizona, they may not win their first round game. So you could be looking at maybe Duke in a Sweet 16 matchup versus a 12 or a 13 seed. It's a possibility, folks. So this team really got out of all the 8-9 matchups that you saw come down the pipe, right? And we'll get to the other ones as well. The one that I looked at, I was like, should be a cakewalk. It's Duke. Now, listen, can anybody get tripped up? Absolutely. But when you look at the lines that will come out for the 1 versus 8-9 matchups, I guarantee you Duke will be laying the most amount of points.
I could not wait to see where Mississippi State ended up in the NCAA tournament because, frankly, I don't think Chris Jans and the Bulldogs are all that great. They had a stellar start to the year, but I think showed their true colors in the final month and a half, 2 months of this college basketball campaign. Yes, they play in the gauntlet of the SEC, but JY, in my estimation, their metrics bolstered up a lot of the SEC tournament resumes that we see into the big dance. 14 teams in total out of the Southeastern Conference. Now the most bids from one league we have ever seen since the field expanded since 1985. Oregon in the month of March with Dana Altman. 75 victories in the last 15 years in this month. They are built for it, but they have been an up and down team. Baylor, a lot of preseason expectation. Very talented roster. They have been underwhelming. Keep an eye on Akron and John Gross. The Zips play at a very fast pace. They will get a very sound offensive team in Arizona. The total for that opening round game, 166 and a half. So if we don't love the top half of the East region, how about the bottom half, JY? What stands out to you?
Well, you look at the bottom half for the draw. You know, we talked about the play of Wisconsin, who just had a bad shooting game. Alabama can get up and down. By the way, shout out to my buddy Andy Toole, Bobby Moe in the building.
Hey, yo.
Took to your right. This is the second different league. Remember, he did it in the NEC. He's got big game hunting experience. What can you say about Vanderbilt, what they did to turn around?
Yeah.
St. Mary's as a 7-10 seed, intriguing. And then let's go VCU. This program has turned out great coaches after great coaches, from Capel to Grant to Shaka to Will. I don't want to say Will Wade, but Will Wade's done a great job with NC State.
We'll talk about McNeese in just a moment.
Probably will be leaving soon too. But Ryan Odom's done a great job. Intriguing matchup, 6-11 versus BYU.
Ryan Odom, the current head coach of VCU, was the head coach of UMBC, the first ever 16 seed back in 2018 to pluck off a number 1 seed, of course, in the NCAA Tournament. JY, in about 30 seconds and then maybe a 2-minute commercial break, we'll go even further into this East region. Our matchups to know in the opening round of 64, a team that could be picked off with an early upset in the big dance, and a player to know as well. You mentioned VCU. Their opening round game against a BYU team under Kevin Young that is getting hot and playing their best basketball at the right time. All around the East region, that's next here on SportsGrid.
All right.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Region by region, portion by portion of the 2025 Men's NCAA Tournament, live right here on this Sunday night on SportsGrid. It is our Bracket Central selection show. And as we have promised, throughout these next 2 hours or so, we go through each and every area of the bracket with an opening round of 64 game to know, an upset we look to, and of course, a player to watch as well that could become a big star It's what this month of March is all about. JY, as we focus on the East region, Duke is the number 1 seed in this portion of the bracket, but your opening round of 64 game to watch is what?
It's Liberty versus Oregon. I think this is an intriguing matchup of two teams that shoot the ball extremely well versus teams that defend also really well. Yeah. So it's going to be a matchup style of fights. And if you obviously look at a team like Liberty, when you could say that you have, I think it's 7 players that get you 8.8 to 13.9, that becomes, as a coach, difficult to defend because they can hit you kind of like Cleveland Cavaliers do now in the NBA in waves, in different ways. And as a coach, you can mix and match your lineup combinations to find what you need. Dana Altman, people were talking about, was Dana Altman done last year? He's got them back. He's new league, no problems. 5 seed, maybe some people think could have been a little bit lower, but this is a really good matchup, an intriguing 5-12 that really can go either way.
Another 20-plus win season for Dana Altman in Eugene, which has really been the case since he's been the Ducks head coach dating back to 2010. Also in that 15-year window, 75-31. The overall record for Altman and his Ducks in this month. It is where they play their best. They got off to a great start this year, then struggled early in Big Ten play. They dropped 6 of 7, including 5 straight. They had won 8 in a row before they took on Michigan State quarterfinal Friday in the Big Ten Tournament. 8 quad 1 wins for Oregon, a proven and battle-tested team. They're a 6.5-point favorite against the Flames, the champions at a Conference USA, led by head man Richie McKay. My opening round of 64 game to know is a team that I highlighted, JY, to maybe be a national championship sleeper. If the offense is as good at a historic pace that we saw this year in Madison, that would be the Wisconsin Badgers. They get the champs out of Big Sky country, Montana. And one of the reasons I think this game is so compelling, JY, Montana knocked off as the 2 seed in their conference tournament title game Northern Colorado, who was the top team in that conference tourney. I thought the Bears would be a team to make some noise, maybe around a 13-14 seed in this NCAA tournament. And if Montana is going to win that game and take on this Wisconsin team, I think we could see some offensive fireworks. 148.5 the total, a 16.5-point spread in favor of the Badgers. I think that game will be tight come Thursday. One of our first games, by the way, where we will have our Bracket Central coverage. You, myself, live from New York City, starting at noon Eastern time for one of the greatest 2 days each and every year, the round of 64, Thursday and Friday. Wisconsin tips.
The greatest. I'm sorry to drop. The greatest 2 days. Sorry.
Hey, listen, I'm not going to argue with that. 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, the Badgers, 16.5-point favorite. So those are the opening round of 64 games. An upset that we might find in this East region. JY, which dog might go barking?
Oh, it's going to be VCU. About 14 years ago, they were a number 11 seed, but it was a playing game. But this VCU team under Ryan Ornament is just absolutely dynamic, and they can do things to you defensively that can make you hurt. And listen, BYU is dynamic offensively, but all you need is for 140-minute game to be a little bit off and have enough firepower on the other side of the bracket. And I think that's what you're going to get here with VCU. Probably a popular pick at some to get that 11-6 game. VCU, the Rams, go marching on.
The Rams, a slight underdog, getting 2.5 points against a streaking BYU team. We'll talk more about the Cougs in just a moment. I'm not very trusting of an Arizona team that started 11-1 in Big 12 play and then ended out the regular season dropping 5 of their final 8. If Caleb Love is good, all right. If he's not, enter a team I really enjoy. The Zips out of Akron, led by a head coach that I think is one of the best at the mid-major level. That would be John Gross. 74 years for Akron as a Division I program. This is the first ever time the Zips have gone back-to-back big dances. Keep an eye on Akron. They are a 13.5-point dog. I think they cover that number in what I expect to be a very high-scoring game. Look at the total, 166.5. Rapid fire, player to know in the East region, JY.
Grant Nelson, stay out of foul trouble. He's one of the best in the country.
Also injured during the SEC tournament for the Crimson Tide. We'll monitor his status as we get underway in the big dance. Give me Richie Saunders, the BYU sharpshooter and one of the best for this Cougs team. Kevin Young, a very promising opening year in Provo. More on Bracket Central Selection Show next.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
We keep breaking down the bracket live right here on this Sunday night on SportsGrid from the south to the east. Now the Midwest region of the 2025 men's NCAA Tournament with the top team in this portion of the bracket, the Big 12 champs, both in the regular season and in the conference tourney in Kansas City. That would be Houston. They draw SIU Edwardsville for the first ever time, SIUE out of the Ohio Valley, the champions of that conference in to the big dance as well. JY, we have highlighted the teams on the one line. For Houston, the number 3 overall seed in the big dance, but the 4th best price of teams that will be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. We know how great the Cougs are defensively each and every year under Kelvin Sampson. What's the best thing about this year's edition of Houston?
I think they have they're more dynamic offensively than in years past. You know, if you look at Houston, it was, Marcus Sass or it was Jamal Shedd. But there's a plethora of guards led by this guy right here, LJ Cryer, to transfer out of Baylor, who's really elevated his game, becoming a go-to scorer. But to me, it's deeper than that. It's getting Udon, the transfer from Oklahoma that's kind of settled in.
Milos Uzan.
Uzan, sorry.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the food. I guess I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah,
Uzan. So, but it's also the play of Emmanuel Sharp. Now, we got to see what happens with Juwan Roberts. I talked about this already. He's got his ankle injury, did not play in the Big 12 championship game. Francis, they got depth. They got toughness. They got coaching. They have rebounding. And they will get you. They do a better job than anybody in the country of getting you to play their style. They impose their will on you and make you walk it up the floor, run your set, put enough pressure that by the time you get to your action, it's like 16 seconds on the shot clock, and then it's easier to defend. Houston is the number 1 seed, and I think they're primed for a huge run.
Houston dominant in the American for about a decade. People question how would the Cougs do now playing in the big boy conference that is the Big 12. Pretty well, I think we can say. They've been in the league for 2 years. They have won the conference crown in the regular season twice and a conference tournament championship on Saturday in KC as well. Houston, a 30-win basketball team that will now make their 7th consecutive appearance in the Big Dance. In their previous 5, JY, they have been a second weekend team at least reaching the Sweet 16 in each of their last 5 trips to the NCAA Tournament. A plus 750 price for Kelvin Sampson's crew to win a national championship. As you go up and down the Midwest region, if you look for another team that can make a deep run, a team that can make some noise and cause some chaos here in the month of March, which school do you highlight?
Well, to me, it's interesting about Gonzaga where they're seated because I just think they were grossly disrespected in regards to what we talked about before. What are we doing? Are we doing eye tests? Are we doing the net? Are we doing the quad? Which way are we doing? Because I just feel like they were wildly inconsistent. So, yeah, I think that's the intriguing team to look at is Gonzaga versus the Georgia team that could play really, really great or they could be really, really poor. So I think it's an interesting matchup here. And then obviously that 5-12. That 5-12. Last year, everybody ran to the window. McNeese, McNeese. And they got rolled. And now, can they do it again? And then, of course, you go to that bottom half of the draw, and there's just a ton of interesting matchups, teams to look at, including that High Point Purdue game.
Gonzaga has not been to the mountaintop of the men's NCAA tournament. It is the knock against Mark Few. They have been to the second weekend basically for the last 10-plus years for those Zags. And I think they are a dangerous, very dangerous 8 seed, maybe an underseeded, undervalued 8 seed being the Bulldogs. They are a 6.5 point favorite against the 9 seed in Georgia out of the SEC. Gonzaga 8th in KenPom, 9th in the net rankings, entering the NCAA tournament, a team with much loftier preseason expectation that has faltered slightly on that, but still a ton of talent. The 2 seed, JY, in the Midwest region, that is Tennessee. Under Rick Barnes, they have made the Sweet 16 each of the past 2 years, but really getting beyond that, past the Elite 8, to a Final Four. That is where the Vols have struggled. They have a very deep team, once again. They have a veteran point guard in Zakai Ziegler. They've got one of the best transfers in the country, much like last year it was Dalton Connect. Now from North Florida, it is Chaz Lanier. What's your outlook for Tennessee in the Midwest region?
At some point, this is going to be an interesting one because you could argue, okay, you have 3 of the best coaches in the country to never win a national championship. When you talk about Kelvin Sampson, when you talk about Mark Few, when you talk about Rick Barnes, and a Rick Barnes that hasn't even gotten to a Final Four, and he's been close, and he's been picked off, and he's had great teams and great players. They defend at a really, really high level, and they got guard play, and they got shot making, and they got nastiness on their team. They should be able to get themselves on a little bit of a run. UCLA, I don't even know if they get past Utah State in that 7-10 matchup, to be quite honest with you. A Kentucky team that goes and ebbs and flows. Illinois at the 6. Which Illinois team are we getting? For the beginning of the year? The one that lost by 50 to Duke after losing, by 15 to Michigan State, losing by almost 20 to Wisconsin, coming back and then getting blown out in the Big Ten tournament? I think Tennessee has a pathway that they could maybe find themselves in an interesting Elite 8, maybe versus.
That's a really compelling 7-10 matchup between the Bruins and the Aggies from Logan, Utah. That would be Utah State. First year under the guidance of Jared Calhoun after Danny Sprinkle did some great things there for Utah State. Now the head coach. Danny Sprinkle was not at Utah State. Somebody else was at Utah State. We'll get back to you. Danny Sprinkle was at Montana State. Anyway, regardless, but for Jared Calhoun, still his first year in Logan for the Aggies. They are a team that makes you grind it out on the defensive end of the floor, but really efficient offensively. We know the staple for UCLA under Mick Cronin. Nothing easy against the Bruins, who were underwhelming, I thought, in their first game in Indianapolis on quarterfinal Friday against Wisconsin. I'll tell you this, JY, if it is Illinois and Kentucky in the round of 32, the 6 seed in the Fighting Illini, the 3 seed in the Wildcats, don't care what the number is. I will blind bet the total to the over. 2 teams that don't really play great defense, but with 2 excellent shot makers, 2 excellent offensive teams for both the Illini and the Wildcats as well. Mark Pope has done a great job in Lexington in his first year there for Big Blue Nation.
Yeah, and I think, and by the way, you were right. It is Danny Sprinkle, but he was only there for 1 year. He's kind of bound.
Danny Sprinkle went Montana State, Utah State, Washington?
Yes, yep. So 3, I mean, you want to talk about a guy like, we call him the George Jefferson of college basketball. Yeah. He keeps moving on up. But I do think it's interesting, these matchups here, and you think about these teams in this region, and yes, you look at, like we talked about, obviously Illinois, but to me, it's intriguing what Mark Pope has done. Mark Pope has shown, just like Patino, just like my buddy Mark Campbell at TCU Women, that you can go to the portal and get it right. Yeah. This guy returned how many? 0. This guy had to do a whole new team. And look what he did. And he didn't go out and get the biggest names. He didn't go out and get the sexiest names. He didn't go out and pay the most in the NIL with the transfer portal. He went and got the right guys that fit his system, fit his style. Question is, can they defend enough to make a run?
And that's where Kentucky struggles, but they play at a very fast tempo. They are a sensational offensive team, at least to witness. A lot of the guys from BYU, like Jackson Robinson, followed Mark Pope to Lexington, but Robinson injured as of this moment. Lamont Butler has not been healthy for the Cats down the stretch. Neither Kerr Kreese, the transfer from a couple of spots, Arizona, West Virginia, and now in Lexington. But the transfer from Oklahoma in Otega Owe has been clutch for the Cats. They draw Troy, the 14 seed, the champions out of the Sun Belt. Only a 10.5-point spread in favor of Kentucky. First time for Troy in the Big Dance since 2017. First year they have reached the NCAA Tournament in their 6 seasons with Scott Cross as the head coach. We will continue to talk about the Midwest region, the games to know, the upsets we might see, and the players to keep an eye on. Up next, you're on Bracket Central.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Our charge to you, our duty, our task here on Bracket Central Selection Show is going piece by piece with a bracket breakdown and, of course, some best bets in the round of 64. And obviously, some upsets to keep an eye on as well. We are focused in the Midwest region with the number 1 seed in this portion of the bracket, the champions of the Big 12. That is Houston. But let's highlight some games to watch in the opening round of 64. And JY, there are plenty of compelling matchups in this portion of the big dance to highlight. Where does your eye go first?
Yeah, my eye goes right to that 7-10 matchup of UCLA versus Utah State. And if you look at, obviously UCLA, it's been really an up and down season for Mick Cronin first year in the Big Ten versus a Utah State team that's more than capable of springing an upset. And it's so, Mick Cronin's such an interesting as a coach to watch because he's very forthright and very honest on his assessment of what's going on. And sometimes that could rub players the wrong way. Where is UCLA's head at after really, I would say, even though making the tournament, a tumultuous season and a team in Utah State that could definitely pick them off in the first round?
The Aggies are a 26-win team out of the Mountain West. Now, the Mountain West has seen their fair share of struggles in large part in the men's NCAA tournament, but a really good matchup there and just a 4.5-point spread. Utah State efficient on the offensive side. Defensively, they want you to play slow. The tempo time and the possession time for their opponents is a very grinded-out style, could benefit UCLA. Tyler Bilodeau, one of the best bigs in the Big Ten, a name to know for the Bruins. Speaking of the Big Ten, in a team that has seen its struggles in the month of March, in a team that last year, led by National Player of the Year for a second consecutive season in Zach Edey, reached the Final Four for the first time in more than 4 decades. But if you are a Purdue doubter, you might have some worries about the Boilermakers opening round matchup against the Huskbus and the champions for High Point, who were great this year in the Big South and in the 2 years under Alan Huss in High Point, North Carolina. JY, this will be an incredibly compelling matchup in my mind in the opening round of 64. 9.5-point spread in favor of Purdue, led by Big Ten Player of the Year for a 3rd straight year, no longer the big man in Zach Edey, but one of the best point guards in the country in Braden Smith. Trey Kaufman-Renn down low, another star to know for the Boilermakers. Outside of that, Purdue has kind of been lacking that X-factor glue guy that they had in various other spots last year under Matt Painter. And High Point as elite offensively as you will find at the mid-major level. 2 years under Alan Huss, as I highlighted. And JY, the Panthers are 56-14 straight up. This year, finally getting to the big dance for the first time in program history.
Yeah, to me, if I'm Purdue, I'm looking at Kaufman-Renn. I think he's going to have a listen, I know the guard play of Lawyer and Smith, but you're looking at a team in High Point that is 227th in adjusted defensive efficiency, a team that's 290th in block shot percentage, a team that's 270th or 267th in steal percentage. So a team in Purdue that does not turn the ball over a ton and should have advantage on the interior. If I am Matt Painter, I know you want to get into you. Sometimes your guards get in this, oh, they can shoot, I'm shooting. Yeah. No. You got to do what you do. I know you got great guard play, one of the best backcourts in the country, Big Ten Player of the Year. You got to go through Kaufman-Renn and exploit High Point defensively. If you don't do that and get this into a track meet and a shooting contest, they could get picked off.
When you lose the 7-4 two-time reigning National Player of the Year in Zach Edey, sometimes your interior defensive presence is going to drop off season over season. Purdue's still back in the big dance on that 4 line. Let's pick an upset in the Midwest region. JY, who's playing spoiler in the opening round?
Will Wade. McNeese took him last year. Didn't turn out too well.
No.
But guess what? I'm back on the horse. I'm going with McNeese State to get the upset over Clemson. This McNeese State team, really good offensively. And even defensively, being 66 in adjusted efficiency, they turn you over. That's the key thing. They have to turn you over and get into a track meet. And at the end of the day, I mean, forget the team. Forget the coach. I want to see the manager. I want the boombox. I want all that smoke. McNeese State finds a way. and they pick off Clemson.
Amir Khan, the Cowboys manager, has become a celebrity of sorts in college basketball as well. 7.5-point spread. I asked you who was going to play spoiler. Spoiler alert for me. I also believe it is McNeese. I trust in Will Wade. He has been a Division I head coach for 11 seasons. He has now reached 7 NCAA tournaments, including both of his years in Lake Charles, leading this Pokes team. Of course, Will Wade might be on the move this offseason, but before he does that, keep an eye on this McNeese team. Quadir Copeland, the Syracuse transfer, doing some big things for McNeese, as is Christian Shoemate, one of their veterans on this side as well. And this is no knock against Clemson. I think Brad Brownell, one of the most underrated coaches at the high major level, has been in Clemson, South Carolina for a decade and a half. This Clemson team, fresh off an Elite Eight run with a lot of those familiar faces back this year. I think it is a McNeese team that matches up well with Clemson, the only team to beat Duke in ACC action this season. A player to know, a player to watch in the Midwest region. JY, highlight a star for us.
For me, it's Emmanuel Sharp. I mean, Emmanuel Sharp, that is an experienced guard. And Emmanuel Sharp was a sixth man last year. And then Emmanuel Sharp was playing well before the ankle injury. And Emmanuel Sharp had struggled as of late. But something there. I don't know what happened. That ankle must have got better because he got to the Big 12 tournament and he started balling. That extra guard, that shot-making ability, makes him the difference maker for me, for Houston.
Yeah, I think it's a really good call, JY, and we'll see what Jawan Roberts has, his availability, of course, for the Cougs. They've got so many veterans that have been to the big dance so many times, and as we said, the Cougs have at least reached the second weekend, a Sweet 16 berth in each of the last 5 trips to the NCAA Tournament. The man out of Lithuania, Kasparas Jakačionis, is my player to know for Illinois. The star freshman point guard at 6'6" is more than likely a lottery pick. But after a sensational, historic, and record-setting start to his freshman campaign in Champaign, has kind of trailed off a little bit. Illinois got ran out the gym in Indianapolis in their quarterfinal matchup. They got ran out the gym in Madison Square Garden in between 4 wins in a row. I think Jakačionis is the guy that stirs the drink. 12-5 upset? We'll talk about it next.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of thoughts.
18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We help you with every single angle of the big dance here on SportsGrid's Bracket Central Selection Show. That's upset picks, that's best bets for the round of 64, finding a path through the madness, Final Four selections, and a national champion, but also how to fill out your bracket. And JY, everybody will look at their bracket, and often the early upset to be selected is the 12 seed over the 5. Here are our 4 12 seed, 5 seed matchups in the opening round of 64 in the 2025 men's NCAA tournament. We start in the South region. Despite winning the Big Ten tournament title in Indianapolis, Michigan got no favors from the selection committee. They remain on the 5 line, and they take on a 30-win UC San Diego team, the 5-12 matchup in the South region. Is Oregon good? Is Oregon bad? They get the champions from CUSA. In that 5-12 matchup out east, it's Oregon and Liberty. Clemson and McNeese, as we highlighted. The Tigers might be on upset alert out in the Midwest region. Memphis and Colorado State in the West as well. Memphis, the champions of the American. JY, Colorado State, one of the hottest teams entering the big dance, the champions of the Mountain West tourney. Nate Clifford and the Rams, they've won 8 straight. When you look at the 5 versus 12 in the opening round of the big dance, which 5 seed is most on upset alert?
I think it's Clemson, but I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to go on record and say right now, I would not be shocked if 3 of the 12 seeds end up getting wins. I think you look at, a team at UC San Diego, all they do is win against a Michigan team that has been up and down. And you can just look at today and that game that they had versus Wisconsin. You look at Liberty, who I think can easily pick up Oregon, a team that I think was seeded too favorably, too high. Obviously, I told you my pick with McNeese State. And Memphis, a Memphis team that I watched in the first half today with Kevin Walsh against UAB be completely out of control. Completely out of control. If Dane Danger, I love saying that name, Danger. If Danger gets in foul trouble and Colorado State playing as well as they are, I could see, Ben, 2, if not 3 12 seeds winning against 5s.
What Nico Medved has done for CSU, the Rams are a really elite program. And again, they've won 8 straight. They won the Mountain West tournament title in Las Vegas. Not a difficult league, or not an easy league to play in. That's a 2.5-point spread, JY, in the 12-5 matchup. Who's the favorite? It would be the 12 seed, Colorado State. They're laying 2.5 points against Memphis. So everybody will look at the 12 seed versus the 5. Let me just paint a couple of stats. Since the tournament expanded in 1985, the 11 knocking off the 6 seed has actually happened more frequently than the 12 over the 5. The 11 over the 6, 61 times, 55 times for the 12 over the 5. And that includes, JY, our last NCAA tournament, where 3 of our 4 opening round matchups, the 11 seed was victorious, and it culminated in an 11 seed in NC State, making that magical March run to a Final Four. In fact, we have seen 6 seeds in the history of the NCAA tournament, 6 11 seeds, I should clarify, make it all the way to that final weekend. The 11 seed, a team to know, in the 11 over 6 opening round of 64 matchup. Actually, the more likely upset, believe it or not.
No, and I think what you look at is when you see these like 11 6s or 12 5s, what you have is mid-major teams with experience versus tend to be younger teams. So you look at VCU as an 11 seed, right? You look at Drake. I mean, he may lose to Kendrick Lamar, but he may take out Missouri in the tournament. You get these 11 seeds, experience, good coaching, continuity. Sometimes, Ben, that's all you need in a 40-minute game.
And, JY, when you think about the 11 seeds that also will play in Dayton in the first 4, those last 4 teams into the big dance, North Carolina, San Diego State, Texas, and Xavier. We often debate, were these teams worthy? Were the tournament resumes enough to get into the NCAA tournament? The first 4 started with the 2011 NCAA tournament. Every year except 2019, we have seen a first 4 team then win a round of 64 game. March is about momentum. We can often see these teams get propelled throughout the big dance. Something to pay attention to. We'll talk the first 4 in our third and final hour. And as we're talking upsets, 12 over 5, 11 over 6. Also keep an eye out for the 13 seed knocking off the 4 seed, which has happened in 10 of our last 14 NCAA tournaments, including Yale last year over Auburn, who is a 13 seed again. Yale against a 4 seed in Texas A&M out of the SEC. Hour number 3 of our Bracket Central Selection Show. Come join us.